You're listening to Mentoring Developers. And so a lot of people suffer from this thing called imposter syndrome, where they feel they're not good enough, they don't belong, and they are pretending to be somebody they're not. Do you ever feel that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I feel like I don't know enough, and that I don't. That's the truth, right? Like I'll never know enough. And for a long time, I think, more so when when I was between 19 and 22, I think I felt that a lot, especially when I got my first job, right? Like here I was, kind of had control of my job for the most part. I had to solve problems, cool, but crap, I've never done this before. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing most of the time. And, talking to my peers and who are male, they feel the same exact thing. They're like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing either. And so that when I started realizing that, it's not just me that feels like I don't know what I'm doing, like other people that I thought knew what they were doing also feels the same way, then it become a little bit, okay, well, this is doable. Like, we just have to learn through the process and I think that's, the take home there is, I think everybody feels, I don't know anyone that doesn't feel like, I think if you don't feel the imposter syndrome, then you're like number one expert in your field, which many of us aren't. But yeah, a lot of us are still successful. So I definitely feel it, and I don't really have a good solution or answer as to like how to overcome it, except for, recognizing that a lot of the people that we may think that don't have that do have that and are constantly struggling with it. And sometimes you feel like you're not enough. And we live in an age and a day and age right now, especially for women, there's always like, skinnier, taller, better, whatever, smarter out there. And it's kind of challenging, but I think if we live for growth, being our motivator rather than this end goal of being like the perfect being, then I think it's a little bit more, you can handle a little bit better because you're like, well, you know what? I'm not good enough, but I was slightly better than I was yesterday. So that's good. And recognizing that and rewarding ourselves for that, I think is important.
Yeah, I think this is a good answer because you're always going to have some kind of psychological syndrome or something that's going to inhibit you, stop you from being the best that you can be.
Right.
And imposter syndrome is a common one, but there could be others, and we just need to fight through them, just like we fight through physical problems, like,
exactly.
You have a headache, you just have to find a way out of it.
Right. And I think, the easiest thing to do, sometimes like I struggle with all sorts of psychological blocks constantly. And, thinking through that and figuring out, okay, well, why do I struggle with this particular, or, whatever it may be, like, why am I struggling with it? And sometimes it almost feels like it's the easy way out. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, well, I feel like, I can't get better at software development because I have this syndrome. And so rather than like figuring out a better solution to like getting through it, I'm like, well, I'm just not good enough. And so I'm going to quit. And I think that's almost like the cop-out method, the way I see it for myself. And, it's justifiable. And I think knowing a little bit about how the brain works, like we're always looking for like excuses for whatever struggles or things that may ail us. The easiest thing to do is to come up with a psychological syndrome for it. And so, which, like I do all the time, but realizing that and catching ourselves when we do that and making sure that we don't fall prey to that, I think is very important.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.